I live in a quiet suburban home that I designed myself 2 decades ago, a house that has seen a lifetime of memories, but has grown far too silent in recent years. I'm an architect, a profession that demands precision, planning, and a deep understanding of structure, qualities I once believed applied to life as much as to buildings. For the past 2 years, that belief has been tested by a single, unwavering focus: supporting my daughter, Jessica. The unspoken agreement between us became the central pillar of my existence, a quiet sacrifice I was making to ensure she could build her own future. But one cold Thanksgiving afternoon, the entire foundation of my life collapsed when my daughter, whose $30,000 credit card debt I was meticulously paying off, looked me in the eye and told me to stop asking her for money. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The arrangement began, as so many parental burdens do, with a phone call filled with tears. It was a Tuesday evening, and I was at my drafting table, finalizing the blueprints for a local library expansion. The soft glow of the lamp illuminated the precise lines and calculated angles, a world of order and logic that I found deeply comforting. When my phone rang, displaying Jessica's picture, I smiled. We hadn't spoken in a few days, and I missed the sound of her voice. "Hey, sweetie, how's your week going?" I asked, my voice warm. The response was a choked sob. My heart immediately clenched. "Jess, what's wrong? Are you okay?" "Mom, I'm so sorry. I've messed up. I've really messed up." For the next 20 minutes, a story tumbled out of her, a story of unexpected expenses, a predatory landlord who raised the rent without warning, and the meager salary from her job as a graphic designer at a small nonprofit. She was passionate about her work, she explained, but her passion didn't pay the bills. Her fiancé, Ben, a freelance videographer, was on the cusp of landing a huge contract, but until then, their finances were stretched to the breaking point. She'd been using her credit card for groceries, for gas, for emergencies, and now the balance had spiraled out of control. The interest rates were crippling her. She was drowning. "It's just over $5,000, Mom," she whispered, as if the number itself was a physical weight crushing her. "I don't know what to do. The minimum payment is more than I have left after rent." Any parent knows that sound, the genuine terror in your child's voice. My carefully constructed world of logic and order dissolved in an instant, replaced by a primal need to protect my daughter. I had done well for myself. My firm was respected, and I had a healthy savings account. My own home was paid off. What was the point of financial security if not to provide a safety net for the person I loved most in the world? "Okay, sweetie, breathe," I said, my voice calm and steady, a stark contrast to the frantic beating of my own heart. "It's just money. We can fix it. Send me the login information for your credit card account. I'll make this month's payment for you, and we'll figure out a plan from there." Relief washed over her voice, so profound it was almost tangible. "Oh, Mom, thank you. Thank you so much. I promise I'll pay you back. As soon as Ben's contract comes through, I'll pay back every penny." That was the beginning. That was the first payment. I logged into her account, my stomach twisting at the sight of the high interest rate. I paid the full minimum plus a little extra. A few weeks later, another tearful call came: an unexpected car repair, then a medical bill. Each time a new, plausible crisis arose. Each time I stepped in. It became a routine. She would call, distraught, and I would reassure her. I suggested she give me the statements directly, so she wouldn't have to worry about them. "Just focus on your work and getting on your feet," I'd tell her. "Let me handle this for now." This became our unspoken agreement. I would quietly manage her debt, and she would build her life. I set up an automatic payment from my bank account, a silent monthly transfer of funds. At first, I paid close attention, but over time it became background noise. The amount grew steadily, creeping from 5,000 to 10,000 to 20,000. I saw the numbers, of course, but I compartmentalized them. I viewed it as an investment in her future, a long-term loan to get her through a rough patch. My younger sister, Sarah, a nurse whose practicality was as much a part of her uniform as her scrubs, was skeptical from the start. We met for our weekly coffee, and I confessed the extent of the loan. "Laura, are you sure about this? Jess is 26. Ben is 28. They're adults. Are they even trying to budget, or are they just letting you fix everything?" "It's not like that," I insisted, a little too quickly. "You should hear her, Sarah. She's so stressed. Her job is demanding, and Ben is working around the clock to get his business off the ground. This is just temporary." Sarah took a sip of her coffee. "And what does Ben contribute to this solution? Is he selling his expensive camera gear? Are they moving to a cheaper apartment?" "They need that gear for his work," I countered, "and moving would be a huge upheaval. This is easier. I can afford it." "Being able to afford it isn't the point," she said gently. "The point is, are you helping her or are you enabling her? There's a difference." I brushed her concerns aside. What did she know? Her own kids were responsible and settled, but Jess was a creative soul, a free spirit. The world was harder on people like her. She just needed a little more support, a little more time. I was her mother. Providing that support was my job. So for nearly 2 years, the agreement continued. The balance on the card swelled, eventually cresting at an eye-watering $30,000. I never brought it up with Jessica. I didn't want to add to her stress. I assumed she was living frugally, consumed with gratitude, working tirelessly to get to a place where she could start paying me back. I imagined her eating pasta and canned soup, turning down invitations to go out with friends, all in the name of financial responsibility. I paid the bills. I answered her calls. I listened to her stories of workplace drama and her breathless excitement about Ben's latest promising client meeting. I was her silent financial guardian, her unwavering safety net. It was a sacrifice, yes, but it was one I made out of love, a love I believed was unconditional, and a love I was certain was returned in equal measure. I had built my entire emotional world on that belief, and like any structure with a faulty foundation, it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. Chapter 2. The Betrayal Over Turkey. Thanksgiving had always been my favorite holiday. It was a day of warmth, of comforting aromas, of family gathered around the large oak table in my dining room, a table I'd bought specifically for these occasions. This year felt particularly special. It was the first time in a while that it would be more than just me and Sarah. Jessica and Ben were coming, and I had invited a few old family friends to round out the group. I spent 2 days preparing, brining the turkey, baking pies, and arranging autumn flowers in vases around the house. I wanted everything to be perfect. Jess and Ben arrived around 2 o'clock, sweeping in with a gust of cold air and a flurry of bright smiles. Jess looked stunning in a new emerald green sweater dress that must have cost a fortune. Ben was right behind her, carrying a bottle of wine with a label I didn't recognize, but which looked expensive. He was wearing a stylish new jacket that complemented his confident swagger. "Mom, the house smells amazing," Jess said, giving me a quick air kiss on the cheek before moving toward the living room. "Hi, everyone." Ben handed me the wine with a flourish. "A little something for the host. Heard this one is fantastic." I thanked him, feeling a familiar pang of maternal pride, mixed with something else. Something I couldn't name. They looked so successful, so put together. It was a good sign, I told myself. Maybe Ben's freelance work was finally stabilizing. Maybe they were turning a corner.
I pushed Sarah's warnings out of my mind and focused on the joy of the day. The afternoon passed in a pleasant haze of conversation and laughter. We reminisced about past holidays, and Ben entertained everyone with a dramatic retelling of a video shoot he recently did. Jess was sitting beside him, beaming, her hand resting proprietorily on his arm. She looked happy, truly happy, and seeing that was worth every penny, every sacrifice. We all sat down to dinner just after 4. The table was laden with food, the glistening roasted turkey, bowls of creamy mashed potatoes, sausage stuffing, green bean casserole, and cranberry sauce. The candlelight danced off the glasses, and for a moment, everything felt right. The conversation was light and cheerful. Our friends Mark and Diane were asking about my work on the library project. "It's going well," I said with a smile. Though with the cost of materials these days,
Once the initial shock subsided, the architect in me took over. My grief and anger were wild, chaotic emotions. But my mind craved order, data, and irrefutable proof. I couldn't operate in a fog of hurt feelings. I needed a blueprint of the betrayal. I needed to understand its scale, its timeline, its structure. I needed to follow the money. My mission began that evening. I poured myself a glass of wine, a cheap bottle from the grocery store, the irony of which was not lost on me, and sat down at my dining room table. I logged into the credit card portal, and this time I didn't just look at the most recent statement. I went back, all the way back to the beginning, nearly 2 years ago. I started downloading every single monthly statement, saving them as PDFs in a new, password-protected folder on my computer desktop, titled simply Project J. It took over an hour. As the files downloaded, I opened a new spreadsheet. Across the top, I created columns: date, vendor, amount, and category. The categories were simple: needs, wants, and luxuries. Groceries were a need. A new pair of sensible shoes could be a want. A $500 handbag was a luxury. Then, with methodical precision, I began to populate the spreadsheet. I worked backwards, starting with the most recent statement and moving through the months. It was a painstaking, soul-crushing process. Each line item was a small cut, another piece of evidence in the case against the daughter I thought I knew. The patterns that emerged were sickeningly clear. In the beginning, the charges had been more modest, aligning with her stories of hardship. There were more charges at discount grocery stores, gas stations, and the occasional pharmacy bill. But around the time Ben moved in with her permanently, about 18 months ago, the nature of the spending began to shift dramatically. The wants and luxuries columns in my spreadsheet started to fill up at an alarming rate. There were subscription boxes for everything from artisanal coffee to designer makeup. There were weekly meals at trendy, expensive restaurants. There were online shopping sprees at high-end retailers. There were pairs of concert tickets, airline tickets for weekend trips, and bar tabs that cost more than my entire weekly food budget. As an architect, I appreciate aesthetics and good design, but this was pure, unadulterated hedonism funded by deceit. While I was brown bagging my lunch to save a little extra, they were dining on oysters and champagne. While I was putting off repairing the cracked tile in my bathroom, they were getting couples massages at a luxury spa. The most damning evidence, however, came when I cross-referenced their spending with their social media profiles. I wasn't a big social media user, but I had an account to keep up with family photos. I navigated to Jessica's page, a vibrant, curated feed of a perfect life. I started scrolling back through her timeline, matching the dates on my spreadsheet to the dates of her posts. Spreadsheet: March 12th, Serenity Spa and Resort, $1,250. Jessica's post: March 14th, photo of her and Ben in fluffy white robes clinking champagne glasses. Caption: feeling so refreshed after a much-needed weekend getaway with my amazing fiancé. He spoils me. Hashtag self-care, hashtag blessed, hashtag love. Spreadsheet: June 5th, Aperture Electronics, $1,800. Ben's post: June 6th, tagged by Jessica. A dramatic, sweeping aerial video of a coastline. Caption: testing out the new bird. The quality on this thing is insane. Big things coming soon. Hashtag Drone. Hashtag videography. Hashtag filmmaker. Spreadsheet. August 22nd. The Gilded Spoon. $225. Jessica's post. August 22nd. An artfully shot photo of 2 elaborate plates of food. Caption. Anniversary dinner at the best spot in town. So in love with this man and this life. Hashtag foodie. Hashtag Michelin. Hashtag anniversary. I took screenshots of everything. Each post, each boastful caption, each picture of them living their fabulous, fraudulent life. I saved them in the Project J folder, each file a nail in the coffin of my naivety. They weren't just lying to me. They were bragging about their deception to the entire world, confident that their gullible mother would never see it, that she would just keep paying the bills without question. By the time the sun started to rise, my spreadsheet was complete. It was a horrifying masterpiece of financial forensics. In 22 months, I had paid a total of $31,452.18. Of that amount, I calculated that less than 20% could be classified as genuine needs. The rest, over $25,000, was spent on luxuries they could not afford and did not deserve. I leaned back, my eyes gritty from lack of sleep, my body aching from sitting in the same position for hours. I felt strangely calm. The emotional storm had passed, leaving behind a cold, hard clarity. I called my sister Sarah, even though it was barely 6 in the morning. She answered on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Laura, what's wrong? Is everything okay?" "I know you're going to say I told you so, and you have every right to, but I need you to listen." I spent the next half hour walking her through my night of investigation. I told her about the spreadsheet, the luxury purchases, the social media posts. I didn't cry. I just stated the facts, one after another, like an architect presenting a structural analysis report. Sarah was silent for a long time after I finished. When she finally spoke, there was no hint of "I told you so" in her voice. There was only the quiet, simmering fury of a protective older sister. She began, then stopped herself. "Okay, Laura, you've done the hard part. You've uncovered the truth. The question now is, what are you going to do about it?" I looked at the folder on my computer screen, at the cold, hard evidence I had gathered. The foundation of their lies was exposed. Now it was time to design the demolition. Chapter 5. The Revenge Blueprint. My profession had taught me that the most successful projects are born from meticulous planning. Before a single shovel hits the dirt, every measurement must be exact, every material specified, every potential stress point calculated. A building constructed on impulse is a building destined to fail. I decided to approach my response to Jessica and Ben's betrayal with the same professional rigor. This would not be an emotional outburst. It would be a carefully executed demolition of the financial structure they had built on my generosity. This was my revenge blueprint. My first call on Monday morning was not to Jessica, but to David Chen, a financial advisor who'd handled my retirement portfolio for years. He was a sharp, no-nonsense man whose advice I trusted implicitly. I booked an appointment for the following day. I walked into his sterile glass-walled office with my Project J folder on my laptop. I laid out the entire story, just as I had for Sarah, but this time I included the spreadsheet and the screenshots. I presented it not as a heartbroken mother, but as a client presenting a financial problem. He listened patiently, his expression unreadable. He scrolled through the spreadsheet, his eyes scanning the columns of dates and figures. He looked at the social media posts, his brow furrowed in concentration. When I was finished, he leaned back in his chair and steepled his fingers. "Laura, this is what we call financial enablement in its most extreme form. From a legal standpoint, because the credit card is in her name, you are under zero obligation to pay this debt. The fact that you have been making payments voluntarily is seen as a gift. You can stop at any time without any legal repercussions for you. I've already stopped the payments. The credit card company will be contacting her soon about the missed payment." "Good," he nodded. "That's the first step. Now, what is your desired outcome here? Do you want to try and recoup your money? Or is this about something else?" I thought for a moment. Recouping the money would be nice, but I'm a realist. They don't have it. They spent it. No, this is about accountability. They built their entire lifestyle on a lie, and I paid for it. I want them to understand the true cost of their actions. I want them to feel the weight of this debt themselves. Accountability, he repeated, nodding slowly. I understand. We spent the next hour outlining the plan. It was simple, elegant, and ruthless. Step 1. Complete financial severance. This was already in motion. I would not pay another cent. I would also remove Jessica from my cell phone family plan and inform her that she would need to get her own insurance for the car I had co-signed for her years ago, or I would have my name removed from the title and registration. Every financial tie, no matter how small, would be cut. Step 2. Documentation and presentation. David suggested I formalize my findings. He advised me to create a single, comprehensive document. It would begin with the summary of the total amount I had paid. It would be followed by the full, itemized spreadsheet of every single transaction I had covered for the past 22 months. Finally, it would include the corresponding social media posts with dates and captions placed alongside the luxury purchases they represented. It would be an undeniable page-by-page record of their deceit. Step 3. The final invoice. The capstone of the presentation would be a formal invoice. David helped me draft it in his office. It was addressed to both Jessica and Ben. It wasn't a legally binding document, but its psychological impact would be immense. It detailed the services rendered, which I wryly titled Lifestyle Subsidy Fund. The total amount due was $31,452.18. At the bottom, in bold letters, it stated, as per your public request on Thanksgiving Day, all financial support has ceased. This balance is now your sole responsibility. I spent the next 2